The warm afternoon breeze of August 12th, 1991, carried the scent of honeysuckle and fresh-cut grass across the sprawling grounds of Graceland, where Michael Jackson had come to pay his respects at Elvis Presley's grave, a private pilgrimage that had become an annual tradition since his rise to global stardom. The king of rock and roll's former estate in Memphis had always held special meaning for Michael, representing both inspiration and responsibility, a reminder of the heights that popular music could reach and the price that sometimes accompanied such extraordinary success. As Michael walked quietly through the meditation garden behind the mansion, his security team maintaining respectful distance, he felt the familiar mixture of reverence and melancholy that always accompanied these visits to honor his predecessor's memory and legacy. The estate was typically closed to public tours during these private visits, but today a small group of children from St. Jude Children's Research Hospital had been granted special permission to visit the grounds as part of a therapeutic program that used music and inspiration to help young patients cope with their medical treatments. These children, all between the ages of 6 and 12, had been selected not because of the severity of their illnesses, but because of their demonstrated love for music and their understanding that this visit represented a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to experience a place where musical history had been made. Among these children was 7-year-old Emma Rodriguez, a patient who had been battling leukemia for the past 18 months, but whose spirit remained unbroken despite the exhausting rounds of chemotherapy and the uncertainty that shadowed her young life. Emma possessed something that had impressed every doctor, nurse, and therapist who worked with her, an irrepressible love of music that seemed to grow stronger rather than weaker as her medical challenges intensified. Her hospital room was filled with cassette tapes, songbooks, and handwritten lyrics that she had memorized with the dedication of someone much older, and her fellow patients often gathered around her bed to listen as she sang songs that somehow managed to carry hope and joy even in the sterile environment of the pediatric oncology ward. Emma's particular passion was Michael Jackson's music, which she had discovered during her first long hospital stay when a volunteer had brought a collection of cassette tapes to the children's ward. Something about Michael's voice, his rhythms, and the optimistic messages in his songs had connected with Emma's own determination to find joy and meaning despite circumstances that would have defeated many adults. She had spent months learning every song on the Thriller and Bad albums, practicing in her hospital bed with headphones and a small cassette player, developing not just the ability to sing along, but a genuine understanding of the emotional complexity and technical sophistication that made Michael's music so enduringly popular. The children's group was being led through Graceland by Dr. Patricia Williams, a music therapist from St. Jude who had arranged this visit as part of her research into how exposure to musical history and inspiration could positively impact young patients' recovery and emotional resilience. Dr. Williams had worked with Emma for over a year and had been consistently amazed by the girl's musical abilities, but more importantly, by her capacity to use music as a source of strength and connection during her most difficult medical procedures. Emma had requested this visit to Graceland specifically because she hoped to feel closer to the musical traditions that had produced her hero, Michael Jackson, and to experience the kind of inspiration that might help her through the next phase of her treatment. As the children explored the mansion's public areas, marveling at the elaborate decor and learning about Elvis's life and career, Emma found herself drawn to the piano in the music room, a baby grand that had been played by Elvis himself during informal gatherings with friends and family. With the permission of their guide, Emma approached the instrument and gently touched the keys, her small fingers finding familiar chord progressions as she began to hum melodies that had sustained her through countless hours of medical procedures and recovery. Dr. Williams watched Emma with the professional attention of someone who understood that music therapy worked differently for each patient, but she was struck by the girl's natural ability to find harmonies and rhythms that seemed to emerge from some deep place of musical understanding rather than mere memorization. Emma's approach to music was intuitive and emotional, suggesting that her love for songs went beyond simple entertainment to represent something more fundamental about how she processed experience and found meaning in challenging circumstances. It was at precisely this moment, as Emma sat at Elvis's piano humming Michael Jackson melodies with the concentration of someone far beyond her 7 years, that Michael himself appeared in the doorway of the music room, having been alerted by his security team that children from the hospital were visiting and feeling drawn to meet young people who shared his love for the place where Elvis had created so much musical magic. Michael's appearance was unannounced and unexpected, the result of his impulsive decision to extend his own visit in order to connect with children who might benefit from the same inspiration he had always found at Graceland. Emma's reaction to seeing Michael Jackson in person was immediate and dramatic, but not in the way that might have been expected from a 7-year-old meeting her idol. Instead of screaming or becoming tongue-tied, Emma simply smiled with the kind of radiant joy that seemed to illuminate the entire room, and said with complete confidence, "Hi, Michael. I sing all your songs. Would you like to hear one?" Michael's initial response was the gentle laughter of someone charmed by a child's innocent confidence, the kind of amused appreciation that adults feel when young people display endearing overconfidence about their abilities. "All my songs?" he asked with a smile, settling into a chair near the piano while the other children and Dr. Williams gathered around to witness what promised to be a sweet, if predictably amateur performance by an enthusiastic young fan. "Yes, all of them," Emma replied with a matter-of-fact certainty that only children possess when stating what they believe to be obvious truths. "I learned them in the hospital because they make me feel better when the medicine makes me sick. My favorite is the one about healing the world because that's what I want to do when I grow up." What happened next would leave Michael Jackson speechless, his professional composure completely abandoned as Emma began to sing, her voice carrying a clarity, power, and emotional depth that seemed impossible from someone so young and in such circumstances. She chose to perform a medley that moved seamlessly between several of his most complex songs, her voice handling the technical demands with ease while her interpretation revealed an understanding of the lyrics' deeper meanings that suggested wisdom far beyond her chronological age. Emma's voice was not merely good for a 7-year-old. It was exceptional by any standard, possessing a natural vibrato, perfect pitch, and an ability to convey emotion that professional singers spend years trying to develop. But more than technical ability, her performance demonstrated something that could not be taught or learned, an intuitive connection to the spiritual and emotional core of the music that transformed her from a sick child singing in a museum to an artist channeling something profound and beautiful through her voice. As Emma sang, Michael found himself transported back to his own childhood experiences with music, remembering what it felt like to discover that sounds and rhythms could express feelings that words alone could never capture, that melody could carry hope when hope seemed impossible, that harmony could create connection when isolation felt overwhelming. But he was also witnessing something he had rarely seen, a young person using his music not for entertainment or imitation, but for survival, for healing, for the kind of spiritual sustenance that music can provide when everything else fails. The other children from St. Jude stood in respectful silence as Emma sang, understanding that they were witnessing something extraordinary even if they couldn't fully articulate what made it so special. Dr. Williams watched with the trained eye of someone who had seen music work therapeutic miracles, but she was unprepared for the level of artistry that Emma was displaying. The way the girl's medical struggles seemed to have deepened rather than diminished her connection to the emotional content of the song she was performing. When Emma finished her impromptu concert, the silence that followed was profound, broken only by the distant sounds of tourists exploring other parts of the mansion and the gentle hum of air conditioning that seemed inadequate to cool the emotional heat that had filled the music room. Michael sat perfectly still, tears streaming down his face, his hands pressed to his heart in the gesture that had become his signature response to moments of overwhelming emotion. "Emma," Michael said finally, his voice barely above a whisper, "that was the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. You didn't just sing my songs. You made them your own. You made them better than they were when I wrote them. You understand something about music that takes most people a lifetime to learn. If this story moves you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more incredible stories about the moments when talent transcends circumstances to create pure magic." Michael's response to Emma's performance went far beyond the polite encouragement that celebrities typically offer to young fans. Recognizing genuine artistry when he encountered it, he made an immediate decision that would change Emma's life trajectory in ways that no medical treatment could accomplish. He arranged for Emma to record several songs at a professional studio in Memphis, not as a novelty or publicity stunt, but as a serious artistic project that would preserve her remarkable voice and provide her with the kind of creative outlet that could support her healing process. The recording session took place 3 days later at Arden Studios, the same facility where many legendary musicians had created their most important work. Michael personally supervised the production, working with Emma to help her develop arrangements that showcased her natural abilities while respecting the innocence and honesty that made her interpretations so powerful. The experience was therapeutic for Emma in ways that transcended traditional medical interventions, providing her with a sense of purpose and accomplishment that helped her maintain hope during the most difficult phases of her treatment. But Michael's support extended beyond a recording studio. He arranged for Emma to receive private vocal coaching from some of the industry's most respected teachers, ensuring that her natural gifts would be properly developed and protected as she grew older. He also established a medical fund that would guarantee Emma's access to the best possible treatment regardless of her family's financial circumstances, understanding that artistic talent deserves the chance to flourish regardless of economic barriers or medical challenges. The recordings that Emma made during those sessions would eventually be released as a special album, with proceeds benefiting St. Jude Children's Research Hospital and other organizations dedicated to supporting young people facing serious medical challenges. But the real impact was more personal and immediate. Emma's experience of being recognized as a serious artist by her musical hero provided her with the strength and motivation she needed to endure months of additional treatment, always knowing that her voice had touched someone whose opinion meant everything to her. Years later, when Emma had recovered completely from her illness and was pursuing a professional music career, she would often speak about the afternoon at Graceland when her confidence in her own abilities had been validated by the person she most admired. That moment of recognition had taught her that talent could emerge from any circumstances, that art could provide healing that medicine alone could not achieve, and that sometimes the most important performances happen not on stages, but in quiet rooms where honest voices connect with open hearts. Michael carried the memory of Emma's performance with him for the rest of his career, often speaking about the 7-year-old who had reminded him why music mattered and what it could accomplish when it came from a place of genuine need and authentic emotion. Her voice had shown him that his songs could serve purposes beyond entertainment, that they could provide strength to people facing challenges he had never imagined, that the healing power of music was not metaphorical but literal and immediate. The piano at Graceland, where Emma had first begun to sing that afternoon, was eventually marked with a small plaque acknowledging the moment when a young patient had transformed a museum into a concert hall, proving that musical magic could happen anywhere when talent, passion, and opportunity converge in the presence of someone willing to recognize and nurture extraordinary gifts regardless of their source or circumstances. Emma's story became an inspiration to other young patients at St. Jude, proving that serious illness did not have to mean the end of dreams, that medical challenges could coexist with artistic achievement, that healing could come through many different channels when people were willing to remain open to unexpected sources of strength and joy. Her example showed that sometimes the most powerful medicine comes not in pills or treatments, but in the form of recognition, encouragement, and the kind of support that allows natural gifts to flourish even under the most difficult circumstances. The afternoon when a proud little fan announced that she could sing all of Michael Jackson's songs had begun with amused skepticism and ended with profound recognition of genuine artistry, proving that talent reveals itself in the most unexpected places and that the greatest performers are often discovered not on stages, but in hospital rooms, quiet museums, and other unlikely venues where passion meets opportunity and creates moments of transcendence that remind everyone present of music's power to heal, inspire, and transform ordinary moments into extraordinary memories that last a lifetime.